Jacob woke before dawn the next day, his mind racing with plans. He dressed quickly in his work clothes, pulled on boots, and slipped out the door. The air was crisp, and a faint mist hung over the fields. He paused at the barn, checking the latch. Inside, he found the hayloft, empty and quiet. Layla must have moved to the shelter last night, as planned. He climbed the ladder and swept his hand through the straw, remembering her warm presence and the soft coos of the twins. After feeding the animals, Jacob walked to the village, carried a basket of fresh eggs and a loaf of bread baked by Maria. At each doorstep, neighbors greeted him with nods and cautious smiles. Some asked about his unusual cargo, replied simply, "For the twins I found." A few shook their heads, muttering about strangers. Others paused, curiosity shining in their eyes. He delivered each gift without explanation, hoping small acts of kindness would soften any suspicion. When he reached the shelter, he found Leela in a bright room with pastel walls. The twins lay in bassinets nearby, tiny blankets wrapped snugly. A social worker named Ellen waited with a gentle smile. She introduced Jacob to another staff member, Nurse Ruth, who waved in greeting. Leela rose slowly from a chair, her face lighting up at the sight of Jacob's basket. She embraced him, whispering thanks into his ear. The baby stirred, sensing his familiar presence. Jacob set the basket on a small table and watched as Layla cradled her children. Ellen explained that the shelter would provide a safe room for them for at least 2 weeks. "We'll help you find longer-term housing," Ellen said, "and connect you with legal aid if you need it." Layla nodded, relief and gratitude, softening her tired eyes. Jacob felt his chest swell with pride. He had done the right thing. As he left the shelter, Jacob thought about the villagers' reactions. He saw Mrs. Patel hanging laundry in her yard. He waved, and she returned a gentle smile. He visited the post office, where the clerk congratulated him on his bravery. At the general store, the owner offered free feed for the horses. Some people still looked wary, but most helped. Jacob realized that simple stories spread slowly. His good deed would outshine the whispers in time. Back at the farm, Maria greeted him at the door with a warm hug. She had brewed coffee and set fresh muffins on the table. Jacob recounted the morning's events, describing the shelter's plan. Maria listened, eyes shining. "You did so much," she said. "I baked more muffins for Lila. We can take them." After lunch, Jacob nodded. "Let's go then." They loaded a basket with muffins, apples, and soft toys for the twins. Maria added a colorful blanket she had knitted. Jacob carried the basket, and Maria held the small toys. They drove the short distance to the shelter, their truck bumping along the country road. The twins cooed softly from their bassinets inside the shelter. Inside, Nurse Ruth ushered them to Leela's room. The children crawled into her arms, and she beamed at the offerings. One baby reached for the blanket, tugging its soft edge. Leela held it to her cheek and smiled. Jacob and Maria stood back, feeling honored. Ellen joined them, thanking them for their generosity. She said, "You two have already done so much. Your kindness matters." On the drive home, Jacob and Maria fell silent, each lost in thought. The fields glowed in the afternoon sun, and the barn stood like a red beacon against the green. Jacob wondered how Leela's life would change in the coming days. Maria asked, "Do you think she'll find work?" "Soon?" Jacob nodded. "I'll ask around. Maybe old Ben at the feed mill needs a helper." The next morning, Jacob invited Lila to visit the farm with the twins. He drove the short way in his truck, and Lila climbed in, cradling one child while the other rested in his arms. When they arrived, Jacob led her to a quiet corner of the barnyard. He set up a rocking chair and a small table with water and milk. Layla sat taking deep breaths. The farm animals, horses, cows, and chickens watched. Curiously from their stalls, Leela's eyes shone as she watched the gentle animals. "Thank you for bringing me here," she said softly. "I feel more at peace." Jacob smiled. "This is your home now, too," he said. "You're welcome whenever you like." Lila nodded, and for a moment Jacob saw a spark of hope in her face. That afternoon, Jacob introduced Lila to Mr. Ben at the feed mill. Mr. Ben was a stout man with kind eyes. He listened as Jacob explained Leela's situation. Ben stroked his beard and said, "I can use another helper. It's honest work and I pay fair wages. And you can bring the babies, there's a safe room here." Leela's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "Yes, please." Over the next days, Layla worked at the mill, her confidence growing. She learned to sort grain sacks and operate a simple machine. Each evening, she returned to the shelter or the farm, whichever felt quieter. Jacob helped with babysitting, and Maria taught Layla simple recipes in the farmhouse kitchen. They laughed together, shared stories, and built a gentle friendship. Meanwhile, the villagers' opinion shifted. People saw Leela's hard work and her sweet care for the children. Mrs. Patel waved when Leela walked by. The general store owner greeted her by name. Even the few skeptics grew silent, watching her dignity and kindness. Jacob and Maria realized that trust earned itself through honest action. One evening, the community held a small gathering in the village hall. They displayed the knitted blanket, the photos of the twins, and the story of how Jacob found them. Neighbors shared muffins, tea, and laughter. Layla stood beside Jacob and Maria, a soft smile on her face. She spoke briefly, thanking everyone. Her clear, gentle voice carried across the room. "You saved my life and my children's. I will never forget your kindness." As the applause filled the room, Jacob felt tears in his eyes. Maria squeezed his hand. They had done more than help a stranger. They had woven her into their community. The twins slept peacefully in Lila's arms, unaware of the change their presence had brought. That night, Jacob lay in bed, listening to the soft breathing of his wife beside him. He thought of the journey they had taken in just a few days. A morning discovery in the hayloft had led to a shelter, a job at the mill, and the healing of a community's heart. He closed his eyes, grateful for the unexpected gifts that life had offered. He knew challenges remained legal matters, the twins' health, long-term housing, but he also knew that love and kindness could guide them through. And as sleep claimed him, he dreamed of a morning where he would again find wonder. In the barn, ready to offer hope to anyone who needed it. Jacob stood by the barn one quiet morning, gazing thoughtfully across his fields. The sky painted a gentle pink above the rolling hills. The air was fresh, carrying the comforting scent of newly harvested hay. Life on the farm had returned to its peaceful rhythm, yet Jacob knew in his heart that everything had changed. It had been 2 weeks since he discovered Leela and her twins in his barn. In that short time, her presence had touched every part of his world. Jacob was happy to see Leela growing stronger and becoming more confident each day. But still, something about her past troubled him. That morning, after completing his usual chores, Jacob decided to visit the shelter and check on Leela and the twins. Maria handed him a small basket of fresh apples and warm bread as he prepared to leave. She smiled warmly. "Tell Leela we're thinking about her." When Jacob arrived at the shelter, Leela was sitting in the garden, gently rocking one of her babies. She looked up and smiled. Her eyes sparkled with warmth, and she greeted him kindly. The twins seemed bigger, healthier, and more playful. Handed her the basket. "Maria sent these for you. She says hello." Layla took the basket gratefully, carefully setting it beside her. Jacob sat next to her, admiring the peacefulness of the garden. After a moment, he spoke softly. "Lila, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but is there something you'd like to share? Something from your past still bothering you?" She looked down, gently stroking her baby's soft head, and was silent for a long moment. Jacob waited patiently. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely more than a whisper. "I ran away to protect my babies," she began softly. "Their father wasn't kind. I feared what he might do, so I left quickly, carrying nothing but the twins and a small bag." Jacob's heart ached for her. He listened silently, allowing her to speak freely. Layla continued slowly, her eyes moistening. "I had nowhere to go, no family to help me. I walked for hours, frightened and tired. Then I saw your barn. It looked safe, hidden. I didn't mean to cause trouble, just needed a place to rest." Jacob gently placed his hand over hers, comforting her. "You did nothing wrong, Lila. You're brave to protect your children like that." Lila wiped her eyes and smiled weakly. "I worry he might try to find us. I'm afraid we might never be truly safe." Jacob nodded thoughtfully, understanding her fear. "You're safe now," he reassured gently. "We're here for you. You have me, Maria, the shelter, and the entire village." Lila smiled gratefully. Jacob spent the rest of the morning in the garden, quietly listening to her speak about her hopes and dreams for her babies. She wished for a safe home, steady work, and peace. As he drove home later, Jacob's thoughts were filled with a deep desire to help Lila create a new life. He knew he needed to speak to Maria about what they could do to help Layla feel completely safe. Once home, he shared Layla's worries with Maria. She listened carefully, her expression soft with sympathy. "Jacob, let's talk to Ellen from social services," Maria suggested gently. "They know how to protect people. They'll advise us how to make sure Layla and the twins stay safe." Jacob agreed, and they made the call that afternoon. Ellen arrived at their farmhouse within an hour, her face filled with quiet determination. They shared Leela's fears openly with her. Ellen listened carefully and then nodded reassuringly. "We'll make sure Leela and the twins are completely protected," she promised. "We'll alert the local police to be watchful and ensure Leela has a secure place to live and work long-term." Jacob and Maria felt relief after Ellen's visit. The next day, Ellen arranged for the local authorities to monitor the shelter closely. The community officers met with Leela and reassured her she had their support. Jacob saw how comforted Leela seemed afterward. A few days later, the village held a small community gathering. Everyone joined in to welcome Leela and her twins officially. The village hall was decorated beautifully. People brought food, music played softly, and children laughed as they ran about. Jacob watched proudly as Layla mingled easily with the villagers, holding one twin while Maria held the other. He saw Layla smile and laugh with genuine joy for the first time since he had met her. He knew now she felt safe and loved. As the gathering continued, Mr. Ben from the mill stepped forward. He announced warmly, "We've arranged a comfortable cottage near the mill for Leela. It's cozy, secure, and perfect for her and the twins." Leela's eyes filled with tears of happiness and relief. She hugged Maria tightly, whispering gratitude to everyone around her. Jacob felt a deep sense of satisfaction as he watched his village embrace Layla. He understood now that real community meant standing together, caring for each other, and lifting each other up during difficult times. Over the following days, Jacob and Maria helped Leela settle into her new cottage. They furnished it comfortably and stocked the pantry with fresh food. The twins giggled happily, exploring their new home with curiosity. Layla glowed with new hope and confidence. One afternoon, as Jacob was leaving the cottage, Layla stopped him. Her voice trembled slightly with emotion. "Jacob, you and Maria changed my life. You gave me strength and hope. I promise to repay your kindness someday." Jacob placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, looking kindly into her eyes. "Seeing you safe and happy with the twins is all the thanks we need. You've already given us more than you know." Later, Jacob returned home and stood beside Maria on their porch. Together, they gazed at the distant hills and fields. Jacob thought deeply about the events that had happened since he found Lila in his barn. He realized that life had taught him a powerful lesson about kindness, courage, and trust. He turned quietly to Maria. "I think sometimes life puts people in our path for a reason. Leela came to us, needing help, and taught us to open our hearts wider." Maria smiled, squeezing his hand gently. "You're right, Jacob. Helping her has given us something wonderful." 2. That evening, as the sky grew darker and stars appeared, Jacob reflected on the beautiful journey they'd taken. From discovering Lila alone and frightened in his barn to seeing her safe, confident, and hopeful, he knew every step had been meaningful. He understood clearly that kindness and courage had changed many lives, including his own. Jacob closed, his eyes feeling deep gratitude for the unexpected ways life had touched him. He knew that challenges might still lie ahead, but he felt stronger, wiser, and ready to face them. The farm was quiet under the vast star-filled sky. The gentle sounds of the countryside filled Jacob's heart with peace. He understood now that this experience had forever changed how he saw the world and himself, with his heart open and content. Jacob knew they had done something truly special. And somewhere nearby, Layla and her twins were finally home, safe and happy, with a bright future ahead of them. The soft glow of morning sunshine gently touched the fields, bringing warmth to every corner of Jacob and Maria's farm. Weeks had now passed since Jacob had found Layla and her precious twins in the hayloft. Life had gradually returned to its comforting routine. But the changes within Jacob's heart and community had become lasting and meaningful. Jacob woke early, as he always did, feeling a sense of purpose deep within him. As he walked outside, breathing in the fresh, cool air, his thoughts turned to Layla. She was now living safely in her own small cottage near the feed mill. Jacob smiled to himself, feeling grateful that things had turned out so well. The courage Layla had shown inspired him daily. She had become part of their community, loved and supported by everyone. Today, Jacob and Maria planned a special visit. They had prepared a lovely basket filled with bread, homemade jam, fruits, and some knitted sweaters Maria had lovingly made for the twins. Jacob loaded the basket into their old blue truck, and soon they were driving toward Layla's cottage. The quiet countryside rolled by gently, peaceful and beautiful under the clear blue sky. When they arrived, Layla greeted them warmly from the doorway, holding one of the twins, while the other crawled playfully at her feet. Her face brightened with happiness at seeing Jacob and Maria, and she welcomed them warmly inside. The cottage felt cozy, filled with warmth and comfort. A perfect home for Layla's new beginning. Maria embraced Layla gently, handing her the gifts. "Just some little things for you and the babies," she said softly, her voice full of tenderness. Layla accepted the basket gratefully, smiling with joy as she examined the knitted sweaters. "They're beautiful, Maria. Thank you so much," she said. Jacob sat comfortably in a nearby chair, watching as Maria and Layla talked easily, laughing together. It filled him with happiness to see Layla feeling safe and joyful. Her face had lost its worry, replaced now with confidence and hope. Her babies, healthy and growing stronger every day, giggled and played happily nearby. During their talk, Layla shared good news. Mr. Ben at the mill had offered her more responsibility, and her work was steady and enjoyable. The village had continued, showing kindness, offering support, and friendship. For the first time, Layla felt truly secure. As the conversation turned, Layla's face grew serious for a moment. She looked deeply at Jacob and Maria and quietly began to speak. "I don't think I've ever told you how deeply you've changed my life," she said, emotion in her voice. "When I was in your barn, I was so scared and lost. I thought nobody cared about me. But you both showed me kindness, compassion, and hope when I needed it most." Her eyes glistened with tears as she continued, "You didn't judge me or turn me away. Instead, you opened your home and hearts, giving me a new life. I promise that I'll never forget it, and one day I will help someone the way you've helped me." Jacob felt deeply moved by her words. He leaned forward gently, looking kindly into her eyes. "Layla, you've already given us something special," he said softly. "You reminded us of the goodness inside people. You taught our whole village the true meaning of kindness. The way you faced your fears and built a new life inspired us all." Maria reached out, taking Layla's hand lovingly. "Yes, Layla, you've truly become family," she added warmly. "Family looks out for each other always." The twins began to fuss gently, breaking the seriousness of the moment. Maria picked up one twin lovingly, rocking gently until the baby quieted again. Jacob reached for the other, marveling at how much bigger they'd grown since he first held them in the barn. His heart warmed as the child looked up at him with trusting eyes, as the afternoon sunshine filled the small cottage. Jacob's mind traveled back to that early morning when he'd found Layla hidden in his hayloft. He remembered the fear in her eyes, the desperation that brought her to his farm. He thought about how easy it would have been to look away, to do nothing. But something deep inside him had made him act, choosing compassion and kindness. He realized now how powerful that choice had been. It hadn't only changed Leela's life, it had also changed him, Maria, and the entire community. Jacob understood more deeply now the importance of compassion, the strength of community, and how a single act of kindness could spread warmth and hope to many soon. The afternoon faded gently into evening, and it was time to leave. Jacob and Maria stood in the doorway, hugging Leela and promising to visit again soon. Lila smiled warmly, her face full of genuine happiness. "You're welcome here any time," she said softly. "This home is your home too." Driving home, Jacob and Maria spoke quietly about their visit. They felt at peace, grateful for the friendship and bond they had formed with Leela. Jacob glanced at Maria, her gentle face illuminated softly in the fading sunlight. He reached over and held her hand, feeling deeply thankful for her presence. In his life, when they arrived home, Jacob walked slowly toward the barn, pausing quietly to look up at the hayloft where everything had begun. He climbed the ladder slowly, entering the peaceful space. Sunlight filtered gently through cracks in the wood, illuminating small flecks of dust floating lazily in the air. Jacob stood quietly, feeling a deep sense of reflection and gratitude. He thought carefully about the journey he'd taken, how finding Leela and her twins had changed him forever. He realized clearly that life had given him a gift he never expected, the chance to learn about the true power of kindness. From now on, Jacob promised himself he would never overlook someone in need. He would never underestimate the importance of reaching out, showing compassion, and helping others. He understood deeply now that kindness could shape a life, heal a heart, and unite an entire community with a peaceful heart. Jacob climbed down from the hayloft and walked toward the farmhouse, where Maria was waiting on the porch. Together they watched the setting sun, the colors painting the sky with shades of pink, orange, and gold. They held hands, their hearts connected and strong. As the day turned slowly to night, Jacob knew that the journey he'd shared with Lila would remain with him always. It had taught him lessons of courage, kindness, hope, and community that he would carry forever. He knew now that life would always hold challenges, but facing them with compassion and love made all the difference. As stars filled the quiet, peaceful sky above them, Jacob felt a sense of completeness. He knew in his heart that this story, this special journey, was not truly ending. It was simply beginning again. In the lives touched by their actions, the kindness spread, and the community forever strengthened. And as Jacob closed his eyes that night, holding Maria's hand gently in his own, he knew deeply and surely that kindness, courage, and compassion would forever guide his path. He had learned clearly the beautiful truth that helping others also helped oneself, creating a brighter world for everyone, one act of kindness at a time. The morning sun climbed higher, flooding the kitchen with warmth. Leela sat at the worn wooden table, cradling one of her babies, while Maria prepared plates of toast and scrambled eggs. Jacob leaned against the counter, sipping his coffee, and watching his wife move with calm kindness. He felt proud of her. She had an answer for every need. Knowing exactly how to comfort a frightened mother and soothe hungry infants, Leela offered the baby to Jacob. He took the tiny form into his arms, marveling at how small and delicate the child was. The baby's eyes opened wide, looking up at him, then closed again as a hush fell over the room. Jacob felt his heart soften. "She's beautiful," he said quietly. "So is her brother." Leela smiled through tired eyes. Maria placed a plate in front of Leela. "You need to eat," she said gently. "You've been through a lot." Leela nodded and picked up her fork, breaking the toast into small pieces. She ate slowly, savoring the warmth of the food. Jacob added butter and honey, hoping to make it taste sweeter. When Leela had finished, Maria fetched clean pajamas and a spare duvet from a closet. "I'll sleep in the guest room," she said. "It's warm and peaceful." Lila's eyes filled with tears of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. Jacob stood and helped her carry the babies to the room down the hall. The soft light from a single lamp painted the pale walls gold. He placed a cozy rocker next to the bed. "Here," he said. "You can rest, and I'll bring the babies when they wake." Layla settled into the rocker, one infant resting against her chest and the other tucked in a bassinet beside her bed. The babies snuggled, their cries fading as they drifted back to sleep. Leela closed her eyes, her breathing evening out. Jacob returned to the kitchen and sat down with Maria. He drained his coffee cup and rubbed his temples. "We need to figure out what to do next," he said. Maria nodded. "First, we should call the nurse so she can check on Leela and the twins. Shit! Then we can contact the local authorities' social services. So we do this the right way." Frowned. "I worry the authorities might take the twins away," he said. Maria gave him a gentle look. "They won't do that if they see how you're caring for them. They're there to help, not punish." Jacob sighed. He trusted his wife's calm wisdom. He reached for the phone and dialed the clinic. Soon, a kind nurse named Ruth arrived. She had gentle eyes and moved with confidence. Ruth checked the twins' weight, temperature, and breathing. She asked Leela a few questions about her pregnancy, her health, and how long she had been alone. Leela answered softly, her voice stronger. Now that she felt safe, Ruth nodded and jotted notes on her clipboard. "Well," Ruth said finally, "you both look healthier already." She looked at Jacob and Maria. "You did well finding her and bringing her inside. The babies are feeding well, and Lila's recovering." Lila smiled, relief shining in her face. Ruth continued, "I'll come back in 2 days to check again, and I'll help arrange a social worker visit." After Ruth left, Jacob and Maria helped Layla move to the guest bed. They tucked both babies into their bassinets at the foot of the bed. Leela lay back, exhaustion taking over her body. Jacob dimmed the hallway light and closed the door gently in the kitchen. Jacob poured 2 cups of tea and handed one to Maria. He sat at the table. "Do you think she'll be okay?" he asked. Maria placed her hand over his. "Yes," she said. "She's strong and she's safe. We'll help her find a home, get legal help, and connect with people who can support her." Jacob nodded, feeling hope stir inside him. He thought about the woman who had stumbled onto his farm, seeking refuge in his hayloft. She had frightened him at first, but now, seeing her peaceful face, he felt only compassion. He glanced at the calendar on the wall. It was May 4th. Just a week ago, everything had been normal. Today, their lives had shifted in ways they never imagined. Late that afternoon, the doorbell rang. Jacob walked to the door and found Mr. Thompson, a neighbor from down the road, standing on the porch. He was tall and thin, his hat tipped back. On his head, he looked curious. "Evening, Jacob," Mr. Thompson said. "Maria." He tipped his hat again. "I heard you had a visitor in the barn." Jacob stepped aside. "Come in, Bill." Mr. Thompson entered and glanced around the living room. "I brought some fresh milk and eggs," he said, holding out a basket. "I thought Leela and the babies might like them." Jacob took the basket gratefully. "Thanks, Bill. That's kind of you." Bell set the basket on the table and looked at Jacob's face. "Is she okay?" he asked. "She's resting," Jacob said. "Her name is Leela. She had her twins recently and needed help." Bill nodded. "Well, we're a small community. We look out for each other." He paused and lowered his voice. "Some folks worry about strangers turning up, but I trust you, Jacob." Jacob smiled. "Thanks, Bill." Mr. Thompson tipped his hat and left. Jacob closed the door and looked at Maria. "People will talk," he said. "Some good, some bad." Maria nodded. "Let them. We know what's right." That evening, as the sky turned pink and purple, Jacob and Maria sat on their porch swing. They rocked slowly, wrapped in blankets, sipping tea. The farm was quiet, now only the distant lowing of cows and the chirping of crickets. Maria leaned her head on Jacob's shoulder. "I can't stop thinking about Leela's story," she said. "She must have been so scared." Jacob kissed her forehead. "Me too, but we helped her." He took a deep breath, letting the cool night air fill his lungs. "Wonder what made her come here?" Maria hummed softly. Maybe she thought the barn would be a safe hiding place. Who would look for her in a farmer's hayloft? Jacob shivered. "I'd like to know more, but we should wait until she's stronger." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the night. Then Maria said, "Tomorrow, I'll bake some muffins, and we'll bring them over. I want Leela to know she's welcome here." Jacob smiled. "Good idea. And I'll go into town too." "Talk to the shelter about longer-term housing." Maria nodded. "Yes, and I'll write a note to the social worker, thanking her." Jacob laughed quietly. "We're becoming quite the team." They sat together, dreaming of the days ahead. Jacob thought about his fields, his animals, the simple life he had lived. Now his heart had grown wider, filled with concern for a woman he barely knew, but felt connected to. Maria squeezed his hand. As the stars appeared overhead, Jacob realized that sometimes life brought unexpected gifts. A stranger in his barn had shown him a new purpose, a chance to be more than a farmer. He could be a protector, a friend, a guide. He closed his eyes for a moment and whispered, "Thank you." The night held its breath, and then, somewhere, deep in the shadows, a soft breeze rustled the leaves. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but the first act of kindness had already changed everything. And as Jacob and Maria sat on their porch swing, the world felt full of promise. Jacob stepped into the cool morning air just as the first pale light of dawn brushed the edge of the horizon. The air smelled of damp earth and fresh grass. His boots sank slightly into the soft soil as he walked toward the old red barnware. He kept his tools and feed. He liked mornings best. Everything felt new. The sky was quiet. The world belonged only to him and his chores. He whistled a gentle tune while he rounded up a wheelbarrow and a shovel, planning to spread straw for the horses. As he pushed open the heavy barn door, Jacob heard a faint sound he did not expect. It was soft, a tiny cry mixed with a rustle of movement. At first he thought it might be one of the barn cats or a nest of sparrows, but the sound continued, clearer now, like a newborn's wail. His heart pounded. He set down the wheelbarrow and stepped inside, eyes narrowing in the dim glow of a single hanging bulb. The familiar wooden walls felt strange today, as though they held a secret waiting to be discovered. Jacob moved quietly past the rows of stalls where the horses slept, breathing in their warm, sweet scent. He paused at the ladder that led up. To the hayloft, the cry came again, more urgent this time. He placed a cautious hand on the ladder's rung.
"Hello, is someone up there?"
He called softly.
"No answer only."
Another soft cry and the muffled rustle of hay. He climbed, careful not to slip. Each step creaked under his weight. His stomach twisted in a mix of dread and curiosity. The moment Jacob reached the top, he froze. Before him lay a woman, curled on her side among golden hay. Her face turned away. Two tiny bundles rested beside her, wrapped in a threadbare blanket. One bundle squealed lowly, the other made a soft whimper. Jacob's mind raced. Who was this woman? How had she come here? He noticed her hair was damp with sweat, her clothes dusty, as though she had walked far. Her breathing was slow but steady. The babies looked clean but cold. Gently, Jacob called out, "Ma'am, are you all right?" He crouched down, careful not to startle her. The woman stirred, eyelids fluttering open. Her eyes were wide with fear. She looked at him without speaking. Jacob raised his hands to show he meant no harm. The babies cried out, and she shifted to hold them close. He saw fear in her eyes, but also exhaustion and relief. Jacob climbed down from the hay and reached to help her. He found an old coat draped over a nearby beam and tucked it around her shoulders. "I'm Jacob Ellis," he said softly. "This is my barn. I didn't know anyone would be here." The woman's lip trembled. She managed to whisper, "I'm Leela." Her voice was quiet, tired. Jacob felt a tug in his chest. He had never seen a newborn so tiny, so helpless. He glanced at the twins, one curling in sleep, the other opening eyes that shone with hunger. Jacob lifted the smaller bundle in his arms, feeling the gentle weight and warmth. Their tiny fists flexed against his chest. He looked back at Lila. "They need milk. Do you have any?" She shook her head, tears forming. "I know. I ran away. I had nothing." Jacob nodded, turning to fetch help. "Stay here," he said, voice firm but kind. He called down to the ground floor, "Maria, come quick." In moments his wife appeared at the bottom of the ladder, concern written on her face. She climbed up, her hair loose and eyes soft with worry. When she saw the woman and babies, Maria's professional calm took over. She moved with purpose, retrieving clean towels and a jug of warm water from a shelf. Jacob set the twins gently on a patch of clean cloth in the hayloft, while Maria knelt beside them. She wrapped one baby in a towel and began to dry its skin. The other twin lay nursing at Leela's breast, and Leela shivered. Maria pressed a fresh coat around her shoulders and offered her water. Leela drank gratefully. Jacob stood nearby, watching his wife work. Her kindness made him proud. After the babies were warm, Maria said, "We should bring them inside. It's still too cold up here." Jacob nodded, scooping one baby in his arms and helping Leela stand. Her legs shook. He guided her toward the ladder. Maria carried the other bundle. Together they descended the ladder, careful with their precious cargo. Each creak of wood sounded loud in the still morning. In the farmhouse kitchen, they laid the twins on thick blankets spread across the table. The warm stove filled the room with a gentle heat. Jacob filled a basin with warm water, and Maria rubbed Lila's feet to comfort her. Lila pressed her hand to her belly, breathing deep. Jacob returned with 2 bottles of milk he had in the pantry for his youngest niece. "It's formula," he said. "It will help until we find a nurse." Layla took a bottle with trembling hands and fed one twin, while Maria cleaned the other. Jacob watched as mother and child bonded in a silent, tender moment. Leela's face softened, and Jacob felt hope stir inside him. He poured himself a cup of strong coffee and sat by the table, glancing at the clock on the wall. It was still early, just past 6. He thought of the questions he would soon have to ask. Who was this woman? Why was she hiding? What dangers lay behind her fear? Yet for now, he pushed these thoughts aside. The twins needed warmth. Ella needed rest. Kindness came first. He reached for Leela's hand.
You're safe here, he said quietly.
"We'll make sure you and the babies are all right." Leela blinked, tears falling. She nodded, burying her face in her palms. Jacob's heart ached for her, stood and began to clean the breakfast dishes from the night before, humming a gentle tune. Maria moved around the kitchen with quiet efficiency, preparing toast and eggs. Outside, the sun rose higher, painting the fields gold. Jacob glanced out the window at his fields, stretching into the distance. In that moment, he felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He was a simple farmer with no law training, no experience with strangers in distress. Yet here was a woman and her twins, trusting him with their lives. He would not fail them. The morning light grew stronger. Jacob knew the day would bring new challenges. The local clinic would need to be contacted. Neighbors might talk. Questions might arise. But at this moment, in the quiet kitchen, filled with warmth and the soft cooing of newborns, Jacob felt a quiet pride. He had discovered something unexpected in his barn, and now his life had changed forever. Soon, the world outside would awaken. But for now, Jacob, Maria, Lela, and the twins shared this early hour in peace. And as Jacob looked at the tiny faces sleeping soundly on the table, he felt certain that today was only the beginning of a story no one would ever forget.